And now, coming to you live via satellite from a smoked-out Southern California bedroom, the clearly, queerly, dearly beloved, high-as-hell highness, Brett Michelle!
Hello. Yes, I am Brett Michelle. This is The Hard Way, the show where, just like the guy who reffed that JD McDonough match the other night, we don't know when to throw in the towel. And no, Blade, I am not talking about your stiff little gym socks. Hi, Blade, how are you?
With zingers like that, I'm doing great, Brett. I'm doing great.
Well, speaking of sticky situations and creepy neckbeards, Asuka has apparently been pleading with fans to stop making romantic requests and that she is so scared of you creeps that she has contacted the police. I don't even have a joke there. Just what the fuck? Stop it. Stop it. Moving on. Bully Ray had a meltdown on Busted Open last week. Did you see that, Blade?
He did?
Yeah. Apparently, not only did he rail against Jon Moxley for not taking his advice after a show 10 years ago or something. That's right. The Dudley boy who got over 20 years ago by powerbombing a 77-year-old woman through a table thinks that Ricochet holding a pair of scissors to AR Fox's neck was just too much.
The obvious hypocrisy is the reason for my laughs, Brett.
But hey, what do I know? He makes more money than I'll ever see in my life, so maybe I should sell out and start gargling some nuts as well. It seems to be what our politicians are doing with Jabba the Putz and his handler Elon Goebbels at the moment, so maybe I'm the fucking idiot. Ladies and gentlemen, our country might not be standing by the time this episode comes out in a couple days, but if it is, I hope you'll stick around because we have a great episode. We have our friends Antione Raphael and Hambone, a.k.a. Rhea Ripley from the Sickos Club community, here to talk about some pro wrestling. So stick around, and we'll be back. Hopefully. Maybe. We'll see what happens with the Treasury.
We might be back, folks.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. We are joined by two of the original members of Sickos Club, some of the first day oneers. We have Antione Raphael and Hambone, aka Rhea Ripley, and Drip Hambone does. If you haven't seen this man's wardrobe, you need to. I assume he has Cher's closet from Clueless. It's amazing. I love it. Hello, friends. How are y'all?
What's up, you fucking... We can swear on here, right? I didn't ask that.
Oh, yeah. You can say whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit.
And for my end, fantastic. That's the way to end a Monday. Come on.
Hey, we're watching the collapse of our country, so what better way to spend it than talking about wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What better way to distract ourselves from our impending end of life than talk some wrestling?
Hambone, you put it so well. Why don't you introduce yourself, Hambone? Tell us who you are.
I'm Hambone.
Thank you.
My real name is Thomas. I don't know what to say. I'm a wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan since I was about 6 years old. I have done a couple cool things in wrestling. I've gotten to work like a couple star casts, and I've been able to interview a bunch of wrestlers. I've interviewed, Eric Bischoff and Eddie Kingston and a couple other big names and stuff like that. So, hey, Eddie was fun. They were both, you know what? I know that, there's a lot of Eric Bischoff hate, and I get it. But he was great to me. He only owed us a half hour. He gave me an hour. So
We love shitting on Bischoff.
It's a hobby. It's
Yeah.
We hate Bischoff as much as we hate our fellow wrestling fans as wrestling fans.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah,
so
that's me.
Okay. So 6 years old, and so I asked you on because you're really dialed into kind of the more. You're a big WWE guy, and so I assume that means the sports entertainment is
I don't want to be labeled a WWE guy.
Well,
okay?
not labeled, but it's a big favorite of yours. Long time. I was a big fan up until recent stuff, but so what is it about that style that you love that draws you in the more sports entertainment side of wrestling?
So, I mean, I think that I consider myself lucky as a wrestling fan because there are so many different styles of wrestling. There's no real one way to do it. There's many ways to do it. And I consider myself lucky that I've been able to find the entertainment in almost all different ways.
Right.
So for WWE, for me, the difference between them and, other companies is just they do have this very spectacle oriented presentation about them. You go to a WWE show or you watch a WWE show and it feels big. It feels like it's, this huge event. It has a way of drawing people in like a huge concert would or a huge sporting event would. So I think that's part of what draws me into it is I kind of like compare like WWE, and I think a lot of people do this. WWE and AEW kind of like to bands. WWE is like the huge, well-known touring band that's going to have pyro and all that stuff. And then you look at like AEW and they're the punk band that's, going around and doing the more, cooler, edgy stuff and a little bit more of a toned down presentation. So WWE gives that rock star, presentation.
It's funny you say that because I often, when people ask me, like what I see, like what's the difference between like AEW and WWE, and I kind of go to the same type of thing, like going to a WWE concert is like, going to see Metallica now, whereas, going to see AEW is, going to see, like you said, like a punk band. It's a little dive bar, or it's WWE is kind of the big summer blockbuster, and AEW is kind of the independent Tarantino in the 90s style picture. It's and I mean not just in sheer size either. I mean there's AEW, it takes a lot from Japanese style pro wrestling, which is where Antoine comes in.
Hello,
Antoine. So tell us a little bit about you and your wrestling fandom.
Okay. Well, my wrestling fandom began when I was a wee little boy, through taped pay-per-views that are probably still worth something that my parents have. I like to just call myself a Black wrestling fan living in the United States of America today. So take that as you will. And I think we're all shared in our love for AEW, but my true passion is Eastern wrestling, particularly Japanese wrestling.
And what is it about that really drew you in and captured your imagination? Because it's not super accessible for a lot of people. I know that was a big for me when I first started, getting into styles of wrestling that weren't WWE and stuff. A lot of the Japanese stuff, I just didn't know where to find it when I was younger and stuff like that. So how did you get into that? What drew you into that?
And there is no doubt about it. It is so hard to find. I don't care who you were, unless you're a tape trader or just have access like Dave Meltzer. But what really got me into it was the ability to have New Japan World, the app that launched basically maybe about a decade ago. But I found a site that just so happened to show New Japan Wrestling, and it was around the G1. And it was the first time I ever had access to watch it whenever I wanted. And this was during the pandemic, and I just ate it up. Like, it was every day, 3 to 6 hours a day, every show. I literally went
Damn.
back and watched 5 to 6 years worth of New Japan just to sort of get a feel of what everything that I missed that I didn't see. Mm-hmm.
And what is it about that style that really draws you in? Like, what is it about that compared to, say, a more American sports entertainment driven presentation?
I consider, like, if WWE is Metallica and AEW is a rock band, then I consider Japanese wrestling to be like the symphony.
Okay.
And it's because there is so much care and athleticism taken that they pride themselves very much on hard hitting competition, stuff that'll make you go, ooh, just from watching. Their history, strong style is all the style that you need. And their real attention to history, to things that just happened the day before, records. If we're talking about the women's wrestling, for instance, Stardom is at the top of my list. I just recently finally subscribed to Stardom World, but to see the absolute breathtaking presentation and the how fast that they move, seeing it in real time versus Western wrestling is such a diametrically opposed style that it is true to me that if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you want to find out if you're really a true pro wrestler, go to Japan.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I know a lot of us in our group chats and stuff, we kind of joke that, going to Japan is almost like the cheat code. You go to Japan for a few months and you seem to come back way better than you left.
They're big on technique. I think, Japan is just so centered around technique, and you don't see through their stuff the way you might with American promotions. It's almost secondary kind of on American television. It's like a lot of times with Japanese wrestling, like if you can see through it, you failed, and you very rarely do. Like, it's like a punch looks like a punch.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about both Japanese wrestling, puroretsu, and also women's wrestling, which is called Joshi in Japan, Joshi, is basically think about having every day of your job be on camera. Your very first day. That is how what they call like their new wrestlers, they perform every single night the basic holds, and they're only allowed a certain level they're allowed to get to because the basic stuff is that important. They will do it over and over again, and it goes for both genders and both companies. And there's so much passion taken in just those little details that by the time they get there and get to the main roster and get to really having matches that are not against each other, that are always going to be either a draw or really it's going to be mostly a draw, then you are literally watching the progress day in and day out of a wrestler.
That's what I've always loved about, pro wrestling, anywhere, is it almost does become like these characters that we follow. It is watching it's like watching a whole athlete's career in a sense. It's like watching a college athlete get drafted to your favorite team and following them for their respective career and everything. And that's one thing I've always loved about more of the Japanese style, the Eastern style of pro wrestling compared to the more American style, which was short term stories a lot of the time. Stuff would be a story for about 3 months or so. That's changing now. And a lot more companies, WWE especially, seems to be really trying to get more into long-term storytelling with a lot of the stuff they're doing with Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and all that stuff. Why do you think, Hambone, that there's still been such a reluctancy of WWE fans, who are kind of strictly sports entertainment now that sports entertainment seems to be dealing more with that style of storytelling? Why do you think there's still such a kind of wall up for a lot of fans against checking out stuff outside of the Western?
I think there's a couple reasons. I think, one of the biggest reasons is I do think that so many fans were brought up in an era where WWE was the only thing. They had a monopoly for a very, very long time. So that is pro wrestling to them. They don't know that there is any other kind of pro wrestling out there, especially if you're a more casual fan and you don't know, the amount of times that I've explained indie wrestling to people who aren't hardcore wrestling fans. People don't know that's out there. A lot of them don't realize that that's a thing. They think that WWE is just the be all end all of wrestling. So I do think that them having a monopoly for so long is a large part of it. But I also think that one of the other parts of it, and you kind of touched on it before, was WWE is just now, with Vince being gone and Triple H being in charge now, they are more now starting to dip their toes into long-term storytelling and storylines that interweave more with each other and with more characters involved in them. And I think that, again, for a very long time, WWE fans were conditioned to think that storylines had to be quick and shoved into your face, and you don't need to think about this. We're going to explain it to you all the time. And I think that other companies such as AEW and even New Japan, while they have storylines, they expect you to be able to think a little bit more and keep up with it. And I think that because other companies make you think a little bit more than that, fans who've been conditioned on WWE's way have this wall up where they feel like, okay, if I watch AEW and I don't get it, maybe I'm being judged, because I don't understand what's going on because they're just not shoving in my face. And that's the only way that I know how to understand this.
Yeah. And I think too, there's probably a lot of, just the social media, kind of discourse around pro wrestling can be just horrible. I made a joke earlier that we, as wrestling fans, we hate each other, which sucks. And that's why, that's a big reason we started the Sickos Club, is we wanted to get away from that and, have these kinds of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
But I do have hope that because I think a big problem for so long was that with a company like WWE here being the only kind of presentation people were seeing, they wouldn't acknowledge anything outside of their own company other than just to shit on WCW during the Monday Night Wars or whatever. But after that, it became, if you went to WWE from another company, you got a new name, you got a new gimmick. They made you theirs, so that way when you left, you had to not be what was there. And it seems like now that they're becoming more open to acknowledging other promotions and working with other promotions, mostly TNA. But do you think that'll have a good kind of impact in bringing people into the wrestling world as a whole and looking outside of WWE with them making those moves?
I do. I think that it's something that's going to take a lot of time, though, because like I said, WWE had a monopoly for so long and people were, conditioned. And, conditioning, no matter what kind of conditioning we're talking about, that takes time. I think that
Listen up, America. We're in the middle of it right now.
Exactly. I think that a lot of WWE only fans, not the
Only.
but
WWE has
WWE only fans.
I have feet pics for sale. If
I think a lot of them realized that Vince was a problem, and I think that most of them are very much behind Triple H being in charge. And I think that Triple H has shown that he is much more of a pro wrestling guy than Vince was. And I think with his leadership and the way that he has tried to kind of undo Vince's conditioning of, he's still going to tell you WWE is the best. He's always going to tell you that, but he's not going to act like, these people didn't have careers beforehand, that they just suddenly showed up in WWE and all of a sudden they were pro wrestlers. He's not going to tell you that that's the case. He's not going to act like there aren't other companies out there. And I do think that the more that people see that, the more they realize that there is more stuff out there and that you can watch it and still be a WWE guy or whatever, that eventually, I think people will start to go outside of their WWE bubble.
Well, and I think we're also getting to a place where in another 5 years, there's going to be a wave of people that started watching wrestling with AEW instead of just WWE. Sure. And you're going to have, it's not going to be this, stigmatized, Monopoly era wrestling community we have right now. You have the people who are happy to have more choice and the people who are angry that they have to share the space in a way they didn't have to before.
Yeah.
And
I mean, think of all the kids that we see in AEW crowds every week. Those kids are going to be raised on, there's more than just WWE out there. And as they become adults, they're going to, bring in other wrestling fans to that, or their kids eventually, et cetera, et cetera. So once you're raised on, there's more than just this, then that's
no matter how much people scream about it online, AEW is not going anywhere. I don't care what you read on the dirt sheets. AEW is not going to fizzle out. So you're right. We will have those generations of kids that are. I haven't thought about that. That is really cool.
I mean, that's the way that I look at it with myself. I mean, I'm just a wrestling fan because I became obsessed with WWE at the age of 6. The same thing's going to happen with kids who are being brought to AEW shows and all that. That's going to be what sparks their love for pro wrestling. And because of that, other generations are going to learn the same.
Yeah. Antoine, I saw you raise your hand there.
I want to second that point because think about it. AEW is 5 years old. There are kids that were born 5 years ago that are 5 years old that are going to the shows with their parents. That's all they know. There are kids that are going to, in a generation, are going to see and know that there is only WWE on Netflix. It's going to be an entirely different world that we see from now than we see 15, 20 years from now. And everybody's right. I don't care what the dirt sheets say. If there's one thing I could agree with on CM Punk when he gave one interview was that AEW is going to be around as long as Tony wants it to be around.
Yep. Amen. Hey, this is good talking about fans right now, because one thing I did want to get into is I know a big thing people talk about when it comes to the different presentations is the fans themselves. We watch sports entertainment, a lot of WWE, WCW, AEW, stuff like that. It's lots of singing and chanting and crowd participation and everything. And then you watch, like New Japan, and it's there's the stereotype that it's just the golf clapping and stuff like that. So speak on that, Antoine.
And they are known for the golf clap. And coming from our perspective on the West, we think the louder we are, the more we enjoy something. That's not the case in New Japan, in Stardom, in Eastern Wrestling. There will be times where it is absolutely dead quiet. And it's because everybody is so engaged in the action that's on the screen. Because unlike here, maybe in the United States, you're not a pariah for being a wrestling fan. In Japan, you're not looked at as, it's wrestling, right? It's fake, right? No, it doesn't really matter. They're there for the enjoyment and love for it. So it's almost
there is a kind of prestige to it, over there. It's not looked at. It's not like, as you were saying, it's not really looked at as the kind of goofy performance art that a lot of Americans look at it as. Yeah.
Exactly. You'll hear random voices just shouting out into the crowd. Naito, or the person's last name. That is their showing their love for their favorite wrestler. The polite claps when you Kenny, and when you hear an ooh, that is when the crowd is absolutely 100% into it. Case in point, Konosuke Takeshita. You knew he was over during the G1 because of the constant clapping. And then after a couple of matches, you hear his name just sort of in the ether, just sort of pop out of nowhere as if a ghost just said it. Takeshita. That right there was the beginning of his run and led to him actually signing a contract with New Japan. So it's two very different fan reactions. The quieter it is, almost the better it is.
Well, and they're so big on respect, and they're a collectivist culture.
Blade, shut up. Host is talking. It's funny because I am someone who a wild crowd gets me going. Like I love when one of my favorite wrestling moments is when Stone Cold came out to help Mrs. Foley's baby boy win that championship. That was the pop you heard after that glass break was just unreal. I thought the arena was going to explode. Like, I do love that. I love it so much. It uses me up. But it's the other side too. When you have these two athletes just whipping around each other, seeing who's going to get that leverage, and then someone does, and it's just everyone just breaks out. Like, that gets me too. It's so exciting. And
that's kind of what I'm going to say too. Is like, I love watching a WWE show or an AEW show where the crowd is just hot the entire time. You feel that energy, but once you get used to how Japanese crowds react, and you're watching a match and it's just dead silent the whole time, and then all of a sudden somebody does something, you hear the whole crowd go, oh, and then you're like, oh, that gets me too, because they're like, oh shit, they just whatever they just did right there, that just got me.
It's true. And so, well, Hambone, what would you say to people who maybe watch it and they don't understand, like maybe they think it's a little bit boring at first? Like, how would you tell them to kind of look at it a different way? Because I think that's part of the problem, is maybe people just don't know how to look at it.
Sure. And I think, again, a lot of it goes back to conditioning. You get conditioned to think that pro wrestling. And I've been having this conversation on social media for all week, but I say it all the time. Wrestling is a variety show, and there's no one way to do it. But so many people have been conditioned to think that there is only one way to do it. The only way to do it is the WWE presentation, and that's just not true. Wrestling is not just like this American entity. It's almost every continent has their own version of pro wrestling in one way or the other, and it's different. It's presented different in Japan. It's presented different in Mexico, and those fans react differently as well. So you have to look at it as this is a form of entertainment that has many, many different presentations, many, many different ways to do it. And because of that, there are also many different ways to react to it. And depending on what you're watching and where you're watching from, their reactions are going to be different as well.
Yeah, I kind of it makes me think of what Antoine was saying earlier about, Japanese wrestling being more of a symphony, if we're calling, WWE and Metallica and AEW, like a Sex Pistols or something like that.
Yeah.
The fan
music is music,
response is kind of the same. Exactly. You don't go to an acoustic folk show and start screaming and dogpiling each other like you were at a Black Flag show in the 80s. It is a different environment. That's a good way to put it. I like that. Okay. All right.
Well,
so,
and I think,
so go ahead. Okay, we'll let Blade talk.
For Christ's sake, can I say something?
Yeah, sure, buddy.
1, my knee hurts. 2, I was just gonna say that I think that one of the biggest problems with the fan base is that the pro wrestlers themselves, depending on who they're taking their money from, stoke these stupid conversations of like, well, that's not wrestling and this is wrestling, and that's not wrestling and this is wrestling. It's like, fuck you. There's tons of different kinds of wrestling, okay? Hambone just said that so beautifully, and I'm saying it very stupidly, but like, there's like...
This is why we barely let you talk.
Well, I'm going to stop talking.
You're only here because Elon Musk made us put you here, okay?
Well, I know. Uncle Elon.
I am uncomfortable.
So same thing on the other side, Antoine. What would you say to maybe people who aren't big into the sports entertainment side of wrestling that they could find? Because I know you're also an AEW fan as well, which to me, still falls under the sports entertainment bracket. So being that your big love is the other side of things, what is it about the sports entertainment that still grabs you?
The pageantry, most admittedly. I watched the Royal Rumble, for instance, this weekend, Sunday on a replay.
First one I haven't watched in a very long time.
And this was the first one I've watched in a very long time. And
I heard it was good.
It actually was. And one of the things that made me appreciate what they did was the pageantry of the entrance of specifically Charlotte Flair. They took the time to, after she has not been on TV for over a year, knowing her stature, to really give her the time to, even though she's in the Royal Rumble and you're trying to get to the ring, to be highlighted all the way down the procession, fireworks, everything. So when it comes to their most over talent, the most popular, the ones that they really try their hardest to put their arm, their production arm, which is probably, the best that there is, behind them. And you get a sense of those really doggone big matches like Cody versus Roman or things like that. So the pageantry still is top notch above all else.
I mean, wrestling is drag. You can't convince me otherwise. Wrestling is drag.
It really is. I mean, come on.
I love the pageantry of it as well. One of the things that I think drew me in as a kid was, I was a, theater kid and all that kind of shit. So it was, it was this big action packed thing. But I mean, as a kid, I was drawn into these crazy characters, all these like the pyro in the entrances, all the Jim Johnston bangers and stuff like that, which I want to say, my biggest gripe with the Royal Rumble in the last decade has been that like everyone's fucking music sounds the same. I have no idea who the fuck anyone is. I hear a song start and I'm like, oh, who is this? Who is this? Is this Humberto or is this Roxanne Perez? I don't know anymore. All their music sounds the same.
Or
Anyway.
whatever early 2000s rock band that all sounded the same. They just decided to pull from.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was my era, though. You know, give me that Jim Johnston, and give me fucking Saliva doing tick tick boom or whatever the fuck it was. Oh wait, that's the Hives. I'm thinking of a different song.
Yeah, what the
They
hell?
did.
What's the Saliva
They did.
one?
I Walk Alone, right, for Batista.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking of their
the
big
dude from
song
Saliva
though.
did a lot of stuff.
Click click boom. I
Click,
went
click,
okay, guys.
yeah.
I went and saw Super Crazy wrestle last night at a little gym like down the street from my house. And I said the fun. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but we only got like 5 minutes or whatever. So they had a tag team match, and it was this dude who looked like a baby Batista almost, and his tag team partner was an alien squid, and their entrance music was that Saliva like. Oh, like it was amazing. It was so much fun.
I love that shit.
I think with that, maybe we'll wrap up. So hey, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out today. I know things are scary for a lot of us right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in our country right now, and with what's going on. But as long as we are able to, I'm gonna be here talking wrestling with y'all, and hopefully you guys are gonna still be doing the same.
And anytime you'd like to have me, you got me.
Oh, trust me, you both are gonna be invited back very, very frequently.
Do I get to plug my podcast?
Yeah, I'm getting there. Hold on, buddy. Well, that was next, so go ahead.
Okay. So I do our podcast is called Freebird Rules. It's me and my two buddies, Con from the 703 and my buddy Nick. And we are right now we're on hiatus because just personal stuff, but we're coming back February 16th, Sunday. We're on every Sunday from 6 p.m. to whenever we feel like being done. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Twitch, and we're coming back with our 2024 end of the year awards. And then after that, we're going into my favorite thing that we do every year, which is March Mad Drip. It's a March Madness type tournament. We take all the best looks of all the wrestlers from the past year. We put them in a 32 bracket tournament and make them go head to head every single week, where we vote, who has the best. And then at the end of the tournament, which is at the end of March, we decide who has the best look in pro wrestling of the last year.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Nice.
I love that. That's fun. And so Freebird Rules, they just search that up and they can find you?
Yep, Freebird Rules. We're on Instagram. I believe that there's a Threads. But yeah, Freebird Rules on everything else, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff.
Perfect. Antoine, would you like to plug away anything you want to plug?
Well, I'm currently not anywhere in terms of being on a podcast, but you can find me on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads under Antione Raphael. I am also a big lover of movies, anime, and particularly poetry. So I will be launching my own website very soon. And that will contain some poetry, blogs, and other items. The name of the website is Mr. Raphael. So look for that coming shortly.
Yeah, and once it does, we'll be plugging the hell out of it for you, buddy.
All right.
And so, one more time, I want to thank y'all for joining me. I had a lot of fun. I really needed this today because I have been a ball of anxiety since the 20th. But this was nice, and it was really, really good.
Were you happy
So
that I was
I
here?
want to leave y'all. What?
Were you happy that I was here?
So I want to leave y'all with these parting words. As always, be absurd, annoy a fascist, peg the world. I love y'all. See you next week. Mwah.